who volunteer, who vote, who participate politically, and who are generous in charity. Depressed people are not. And so it turns out Ehrenreich was 180 degrees wrong about happy people are better citizens statistically than unhappy people. Creativity. Sylvia Plath, Fyodor Dostoevsky, miserable, suicidal people who are creative. And so the myth of Sylvia Plath arose. And that said, you have to be depressed to be creative. And it turned out Sylvia Plath and Dostoevsky were bipolar depressives, manic depressives. They were not creative during the depressive phase. They're created during the manic phase. And in general, it turns out in the laboratory, if you make people, if you increase PERMA, people are more creative. And the intuition here is when you're unhappy, when you're scared or angry or sad, you fall, it's constricting. You fall back on what you already know. When you're happy, you open up to the world, you explore, you do the things that are required in creativity. So in general, the data support the notion that happiness feeds creativity. And finally, I've spent a lot of my life working on this, is who bounces back when they're defeated. And basically, one of the most important things about optimism and PERMA is that these are the people who bounce back. So in the laboratory, when we make people helpless with inescapable noise, unsolvable problems, about a third of people don't become helpless. And I can't make them helpless. And those are the optimists. And in general, if you right now measure your depression at time 1 and your PERMA, and then you just wait for a couple of years, optimistic people, people with high PERMA, get depressed at between 1/2 and 1/8 the rate of low PERMA people. So PERMA is a major cause. And you want PERMA, you want to teach it, you want more of it in your own life, not just because you're going to feel better, but for all those reasons. So happiness is a cause. It's measurable. I have a website called AuthenticHappiness.org. About 7 or 8 million people have gone there. It's free. It's got all the major tests of happiness, well-being, and PERMA. Not in Portuguese. It's in Spanish, English, German, Mandarin, and the like. But I don't think it's in Portuguese. They're good questionnaires that measure PERMA. And importantly, there are a lot of people who don't take questionnaires. Sports heroes, CEOs, dead people, candidates for president of the United States. So we asked, is there a way of measuring the well-being of people who don't take questionnaires? And the way you do it, which I'll use when I talk about Trump and Harris, is you take every sentence they say that's written down, and every time there's a cause, you write down the cause of the bad event, and then a group of blind raters who don't know who said it rate it as if it was a questionnaire item for temporary, permanent, local, global, and uncontrollable, controllable. So you can test famous people and dead people as well. Is it teachable? Well, this is a real problem. So in the first 35 years of my work, I worked with medications and psychotherapy. And the dirty little secret of psychotherapy and medications is that they produce effects for the better, But the way you measure the robustness of the effect is how long it lasts after you stop the medication or you stop the psychotherapy. How long does it take to melt to zero? And the answer, unfortunately, is pretty quickly for all of them. So it turns out that from the Buddha to modern pop psychology, there have been about 200 suggestions of what makes people lastingly happier. And so a lot of what people in positive psychology do these days is they take each of those suggestions and they do random assignment, placebo-controlled testing, and they see if it works. And as I say, there are between 12 and about 15 interventions that have been documented. And very interestingly, unlike dieting, unlike medications, unlike psychotherapy, these last in time, and largely because they're fun doing. So the reason dieting fails, the reason dieting is a scam, is people don't like, you can lose 5% of your body weight with virtually any diet on the bestseller list, but 90% of people regain all that weight or more afterwards. And that's because it's no fun turning down chocolate mousse. On the other hand, if you do, and I'll just do two examples here, I think. So one of the interventions that works is called 3 blessings. And that's simply for the next week, when you go to bed at night,